The scene starts with a woman named Malorie Hayes telling two kids, known as boy and girl, about a very dangerous trip across the water, and she emphasizes how crucial it is that they keep their blindfolds on as they leave the house. Malorie grabs her pet births and puts them inside a box and guides the kids outside by following a string trail to find the way to the boat. She puts the kids on the boat and hopping in on the river. The scene goes back 5 years earlier. Malorie is an artist while she is pregnant. Her sister Jessica comes to visit Malorie, and they watch a news report on undescribed mass suicides that started in Siberia and is now spreading across Europe. Jess notices the painting. Malorie explains loneliness on their faces. Jess tells her that it won't be like that with the baby. Then she offers to accompany Malorie to the doctor. Malorie visits Dr. Lapham. They make jokes with Jess about having a drink. Lapham doesn't find the joke so interesting and offers an alternative to let someone adopt the baby. Malorie runs to the bathroom and tells Jessica to wait for her in the car. On her way out, Malorie notices a woman they passed earlier banging her head to the glass window. Malorie rushes to the car and tells Jess to drive away from there. They realize that whatever was affecting people in Europe and Siberia has now arrived here. Malorie tries to find the phone while Jess appears frightened by something, only she can see her eyes turn a weird color. She drives frantically, with Malorie trying to keep her on the road, but Jess flips the car and crashes. They survive, but Jess is still under a trance, and Malorie can only watch as her sister steps in front of a truck. Malorie runs along with everyone else. A woman named Lydia comes to help her up. But she appears to fall into a deep trance and enters a flaming car. A man named Tom helps Malorie up and rushes into the house. Douglas, Lydia's husband, watches her explode in the car through the window. Greg, the homeowner, let them come inside, and Douglas blames Malorie for his wife's death. They are all aware that the object is invisible and that gazing at it will result to commit suicide. Charlie believes that the creature is brought on by demons that manifest as one's greatest sorrow. Tom attempts to comfort Malorie as she walks away from the group and explains what occurred to Jess and the other women who came to help her. Back to the present, now after spending 6 hours on the river, Malorie and the kids continue to travel downstream even though it is completely dark. Malorie uses the radio to establish touch with individuals, but no one responds. A survivor named Olympia begs to be allowed inside the house. Despite Douglas' efforts to stop her, Malorie gets a rifle just in case. The others let Olympia into the house with caution and notice that she is also expecting a child. They are worried about the necessary supplement. Greg then offers to observe whatever is outside by checking out the transmitters in the house to find a way to get food. He sits in front of the monitors tied on the chair waiting to see something. Others are desperately waiting to see if that unseen object will affect through monitor. Greg waits for a short time but still nothing. Suddenly he observes something on the monitor, his eyes turn to a weird color and others hear a thumping coming from the room upstairs. They rush into the room to check on Greg, but he has already killed himself and they destroy the monitor. It's 14 hours on the river. Malorie hears a man calling out to her saying it's safe to take off blindfolds, but Malorie tells the kids not to do so. Malorie grabs her gun and fires blindly around. The man starts to fight Malorie. Just before the man tries to take her blindfold off, she kills him by hacking at him with a machete and goes from there very fast. Back in the past, the group ran out of food and they must do something. They cover all windows to not be able to see outside. They take the car and use the GPS to guide them. On the road, they attempt to ignore the fact that they feel as though they are driving over dead bodies. GPS starts going off over a proximity alert. It means that they are surrounded by the invisible object. Charlie tries to get out of the car but others hold him to stay. Tom manages to drive from there and crashes the car in front of the supermarket. Everyone got out of the car with blindfold on. They get inside the market and take off their blindfold and grab as much food as they can. Malorie sees some birds that she decides to take with her as pets. Suddenly, they hear the voice of Charlie's coworker, who is locked in a freezer and begging to be let out. Charlie then sees the invisible object and realizes he is doomed. He runs fast toward Fish Fingers and has them both shut inside the freezer where Charlie dies, letting the others return home. Malorie and Douglas are having a nice chat while Lucy and Felix, who took the car, and drive away from the group. They rush into the garage and find out that the car is already gone. It's 24 hours on the river by now. The boat bumps into the sunken truck and Boy falls out of the boat into the water. Malorie pulls him out and tries to warm him, however the food and blankets have fallen into the river. She manages to take the boat to a land area, then leaves the kids in the boat and heads to the woods to find some food. Malorie gets into a building where she might be able to find some supplements. The kids take their cover off. Malorie hears voices and sees things moving on their own and being pulled by the invisible object. She manages to make her way out of the building, but the invisible object continues to whisper her name. Malorie fires her gun at the unseen entity. Girl hears the gunfire and leaves the boat to help Malorie. Girl keeps walking through the woods toward the voices she hears. The unseen entity wants Girl to take off her blindfolds. Malorie finds Girl and grabs her. Malorie warns Girl with a very angry tone to never do it again, and they take the boat and move on. In the past, Tom tells Malorie a memory about how he was stationed in Iraq, and he and his co-workers would follow a man as he was taking his kids to school in the middle of all the chaos. Malorie and Tom also start to develop feelings for one another. Back to the present, by now it's 28 hours on the river. Malorie tries very hard to find a connection with some individuals, but she fails. The door knocks and Olympia lets a desperate man named Gary into the house without asking others. The others aggressively search and interrogate Gary. Gary tells a story to others about some escaped mental patients who came after he and his friend. The two of them were coerced to gaze at the creatures. Gary's friend fought one of them, allowing him to get away and run to the house. Douglas doesn't trust Gary and attempts to eject him from the house. Cheryl knocks Douglas out and allows Gary to stay with them and lock him in the garage. Olympia then asks Malorie if something happens to her to take care of her baby, and Malorie agrees. She then gives Olympia a Hello Kitty toy to give the baby. At present, it's been 38 hours on the river across the water, and Girl holding the same Hello Kitty toy, indicating she is Olympia's daughter. Malorie gets everyone under a blanket to warn them that they are near the rapids, and that it will be the most dangerous part of the journey. In the past, both Malorie and Olympia begin to feel pain at the same time. While Tom and Cheryl are helping them, Gary takes out a bunch of drawings of the creatures. It means he is one of the crazy people who has seen them and wants others to see them, as he told the story earlier. He takes Malorie's pet birds and puts them in the fridge because they appear to feel and alert others to danger. Douglas is locked in the garage when he sees Gary tearing the papers off the windows. Tom comes and finds out about Gary's sickness. He takes the birds out of fridge and Gary hit him and he passed out. Gary wants to get rid of Douglas, so he opens the garage door. Meanwhile, Olympia gives birth to a girl while Malorie gives birth to a boy. Gary enters the room, observes the babies, goes directly to the window, and pulls the blinds up in front of Olympia. Malorie insists on having the baby for a second, and she hands Malorie her baby right before she jumps out the window. Malorie covers herself with babies. Gary then forces Cheryl to open her eyes to the outside, causing her to commit suicide with scissors. Gary insists Malorie to see the beautiful creature while Douglas comes in with the rifle, but cannot shoot with his eyes open and is afraid to hit Malorie and the babies. He manages to shoot Gary in the arm, but he kills Douglas by stabbing him with the scissors. Tom then sees the rifle and tries to grab it, as does Gary. 2 gunshots are heard. Malorie is scared undercover with 2 babies, but Tom is seen alive and going to be with Malorie and the babies. Now everyone is dead but Tom, Malorie, and 2 babies. The scene is now 5 years later, just before the start of the film. It has been 5 years now since Malorie and Tom lived together, raising the 2 kids, boy and girl. However, Tom calls Malorie out for not connecting with them or even giving them potential names. Malorie is searching to find some food and she hears noise outside the house, and it's some people driving in the cars out with no blindfolds or covers. She manages to get home safe as Tom is waiting for her. She checks on kids while they are sleeping. At night, the 2 receive a radio transmission from a man named Rick, who says he is at a safe compound with plenty of supplies and food. He asks about how many are there and if they have kids, because with kids it seems to be impossible to make it. He gives them the instructions for the compound down the river, and how they will need to see in order to get through, so they draw it on the map. Rick tells them to follow the sound of birds to find the compound. Tom wants to go to the compound, but Malorie suspects it could be a trap. Outside the house, the survivors from earlier found the house. Tom goes to block them while Malorie and the kids skip from there safely. The survivors, led by Whistling Marauder, tell Tom to take off his blindfold and see. When they spot Malorie with the kids, Tom starts to fire and kills 3 of the marauders before he takes 1 shot himself. Tom takes off his blindfold and kills 2 more before going after the leader, who is following after Malorie and the kids. The unseen entity starts to affect Tom, but he fights it long enough to kill the leader before he kills himself too. Malorie feels that Tom is gone by now. Heartbroken, Malorie comes back to the house and sits for a moment, then packs up their things, gives instructions to the kids, and leaves the house to find Eric, who gave information about the safe place. Back in the present, it has now been 42 hours on the river, and they are very fast approaching the rapids. Malorie tries to explain to the kids that one of us must see the way with open eyes to navigate the boat in order for others to survive. Both of them volunteer, but Malorie reconsiders and says nobody will see, we just go through it all together. They are on the bumpy waters now, which Malorie tries to get through, but the boat flips over and everyone falls out. Malorie calls out to the kids and searches after them desperately with a blindfold on. Malorie is very happy to find one of them, so far she hugs Boy and calls after Girl. Girl has made it to the land and keeps ringing with her bell to find Malorie and Boy. Malorie finds Girl, puts her blindfold on and then walks through the woods. While they are walking, the unseen entity whispers to them and uses all its power to try and get them to see. However, Malorie's will is stronger and she knows it's the entity. Malorie stumbles and falls down and she passes out for a second while the kids are going toward the whispers. She wakes up and tries to find the Boy and Girl, but before that she must go all the way up first. The entity uses all its power in order to get them to see. Kids slowly fall into a trap and start to take their blindfolds off, while Malorie screams and searches to prevent them from doing it. She shouts to the kids, "That is not me, I am here, listen to me, I'm here." Malorie finds Boy and talks to the girl to listen to her and not look. Malorie then sits down with Boy and begs Girl to listen to her and come back, telling her the same story Tom used to tell them. Girl finally comes to them. Now Malorie must find the sound of birth and follow them to the compound. Malorie follows the sounds of the birds as they make it to the compound, but the unseen entity surrounds them as she struggles to make it inside until someone opens the door and lets them in. They check everyone's eyes and show them the way. They meet Rick, who is blind. Malorie finds out that the compound is a school for the blind, and the people there are protected from unseen entities. Malorie and the kids then find Dr. Lapham, who happily welcomes them. She asks the kids their names, and Malorie finally names them: Girl, Olympia after her mother, and Boy, named after Tom. Malorie proudly says they are her children and she is their mother. Malorie then opens her bird box and frees the birds to be with the others in the sanctuary. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.